Today we are going to go over Algebra 1A Lesson 14, and the objective for this lesson is so you will be able to graph an inequality in two variables by using slope-intercept form, borderlines, and shading. Let's go over some key terms. The first one is linear inequality, which is an inequality that has the same form as an equation of a line, but with an inequality symbol rather than an equal sign. Slope-intercept form is for all straight, non-vertical lines, an equation of the line that may be written in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m represents your slope and b represents the y value of the y-intercept of that line. So here are two differences between graphing linear equations and linear inequalities. They're very similar. We only have two differences. The first one is there is shading involved in inequalities to represent all possible answers. The second one is lines can either be represented by solid lines or dotted lines. So here's an example. When we have inequalities that have a less than or greater than symbol in them, that will be represented by dotted lines. Whereas inequalities that have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to symbol in them will be represented by solid lines. So we're going to go into details with that so that you can see it. So what form should we use to graph? This is what you learned in Unit 2. It's the same thing for inequalities. The easiest form to graph inequalities or equations is the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So if the inequality is not in slope-intercept form, you must rearrange that inequality so that it is in that form. And keep in mind, solving an inequality is very similar to solving an equation, except for one rule. When you divide or multiply by a negative number for an inequality, you must switch the inequality sign. So here is a review. Rearrange the following inequality so that it is in slope-intercept form. So we're basically solving for y, getting y by itself. So we need to get rid of the x by using opposite operation. That means to subtract x on both sides. We have negative 2y is less than or equal to negative x plus 8. Now we have to get rid of the negative 2. That means we have to divide every single thing by negative 2. And keep in mind, because we either multiply or divide by negative, which we did, negative 2, we have to switch the symbol for the inequality. So it was a less than or equal to. Now it turned into a greater than or equal to. So keep in mind, when you multiply or divide by negative, you must switch the inequality sign. Alright, and that is already in slope-intercept form. So now I want you to try one out on your own really quick. We want to rearrange the following inequality so that it is in slope-intercept form. Pause the video, resume when you are ready. We're going to try it out. First thing we want to do is add the 4x to both sides. If you decided to do the minus 2 to both sides first, you're also correct. It doesn't really matter. So I did that first. The left side cancels out. The right side now is equal to 4x plus 8. However, we still have that 2 on the left side. So we have to use opposite operation, which is subtracting 2 on both sides, which now gives us y is greater than or equal to 4x plus 6. So notice we did not divide or multiply by a negative number. So we did not have to change the inequality sign. They are the same. Alright, now let's get into the fun part, which is graphing linear inequalities. So we have this example. Y is less than or equal to negative 4x plus 7. So the question you should ask yourself first is, will we need to use a dotted or a solid line to graph this inequality? So if the inequality symbol is less than or greater than, the line will be dotted. If the inequality symbol is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, the line will be solid. In our example, we have this symbol, which is less than or equal to. That means we will have a solid line. Second question you ask yourself is, will we need to shade above or below the line? Keep in mind, this applies to slope-intercept form only. So we ask ourselves, is y less than or equal to? If it is, we shade below the line. If y is greater than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, then we shade above the line. So right here, you will notice it says y is less than or equal to, meaning we will shade below the line. So for the next couple of examples, we're just going to describe it. We're not going to actually graph it just yet. That's going to come later. So basically, the graph of the inequality y is less than or equal to negative 4x plus 7 has a solid borderline and is shaded below the line. Here's another example. We want to graph y is greater than 2x minus 4. So same question. Are we going to use a dotted or a solid line? So we're going to look at the symbol. Symbol is a greater than symbol. That means we have a dotted line. Question 2 is, will we need to shade above or below the line? Well, because it is greater than, we are going to shade above the line. So this graph of the inequality has a dotted border line and is shaded above the line. Alright, I want you to try one out really quick. Pause the video and then resume it when you're ready. And again, for this one, it's just answering, is it above, below, is it dotted, or solid? Alright, question 1. Will we need to use a dotted or a solid? Well, the symbol is greater than or equal to, so we are going to use a solid line. Second question, are we shading above or below? Because it is greater than or equal to, we are going to shade above the line. So this inequality has a solid borderline and is shaded above the line. So now we're actually going to graph. Here's an example. Graph the linear inequality 3y is less than negative 6x plus 9. So before we can actually graph it, we want to make sure it is in slope-intercept form. As you can tell, there's one thing stopping it from being in slope-intercept form, and that is the 3. Because remember, we have to get y by itself. So opposite operation, it is 3 times y, so we need to divide by 3. When we do that, we get y is less than negative 2x plus 3. Keep in mind, when you divide the 3, you must divide it to the negative 6x and to the positive 9. So now we have our inequality. Y is less than negative 2x plus 3. Now we get to graph. So let's decide what kind of line are we going to use. Solid or dotted? Well, it is a less than sign, so it is going to be a dotted line. I don't know if you remember how to graph equations, or in this case inequalities, but same thing. You want to plot the y-intercept first, which is going to be 3, and then you want to plot or use the slope to plot the next line. So the line would look like that, where the y-intercept is positive 3 right here. And if you go down to right 1, that should be the next line or next point, down to right 1, so on and so forth. So that is the line for this inequality, and it is a dotted line or a dashed line. Next question, is x less than or equal to, or is it greater than or equal to? In this question, it is less than, so we are going to shade below the line. So that is how we graph this inequality. So you can shade it. Normally they already shaded for you in the question, but that is how you do it. Alright, here's another example. Graph the inequality x minus 2y is greater than or equal to 1. So again, it is not in slope-intercept form yet, so we need to put it into slope-intercept form by using opposite operation. We have negative 2y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 1. Now we have to divide everything by negative 2. And remember, because we divided by a negative number, we need to switch the inequality sign. So we have y is less than or equal to x over 2 minus 1 over 2. Alright, so remember, if the slope is x over 2, that's another way of writing 1/2 x, meaning the slope is going to be 1 over 2. So keep that in mind. So we're going to draw a solid line because it is less than or equal to. So notice here's the y-intercept, negative 1/2, which is between 0 and negative 1. If you go up 1, right 2, there's another point, and you keep going. That's how that graph looks like that. Alright, next, are we shading above or below the line? Well, because it is less than or equal to, we are going to shade below the line. So that right there is our answer for this question. Alright, now I want you to try one out on your own really quick. Pause the video and then resume when you are ready. Alright, we have to again put it into slope-intercept form, and again it is not in slope-intercept form. So we need to get rid of the negative 4 by using opposite operation, which is dividing both sides by negative. And remember, if we divide by a negative number, we need to switch the inequality sign. So the answer, or the form, is y is less than or equal to 2x minus 4. Same thing, we need to ask ourselves, are we going to use a dotted line or a solid line? Well, it is less than or equal to, so we are going to use a solid line. Y-intercept is negative 4, slope is positive 2. Next, where are we shading? Above or below? Because it is less than or equal to, again, we're going to shade below the line. And that's what it would look like. So now, we're going to do the opposite. This time, we're given a graph. Now we need to find the inequality that represents that graph. So here are some questions you must ask yourselves. 1. What is the y-intercept? Because you need that in order to write an inequality. So you want to look at the y-axis. Where does the line pass? It passes at 4. So the y-intercept is going to be 4. Next question. What is the slope? So to find the slope, you want to get 2 points, right? So my second point will be right there, just to keep it simple. Slope is rise over run, so we need to see, are we going up or down first? And then left to right. So from my left point to my right point, I am going down, that's 4 units. I'm going to the right 2 units. So because we're going down, we need to make that a negative, which is negative 4, over moving left to right. We move to the right, so that's a positive. That means positive 2. So we have the slope of negative 4 over 2. You can simplify it to negative 2 over 1, or the most simplified form would be negative 2. And that's what you want to use when you write the inequality. You only want to use fractions when you are plotting it. Alright, question 3. Is the line solid or dotted? The line is actually solid. We're going to need that to know what kind of inequality symbol we are going to use. Last question is the shading above or below the line? Well, it is above the line. That means we're going to use a greater than symbol. So to write the inequality, it is y is greater than or equal to, that's from the solid line, negative 2x, which was the slope, negative 2, plus 4, which is the y-intercept. Alright, one more example. So same thing, we're given a graph, now we need to write an inequality that represents that graph. Same questions you want to ask yourselves. What is the y-intercept? It's where it crosses the y-axis, that is positive 1. What is the slope? Choose another point. See how many units we go up by, that's 1. And we go to the right 2 units, so the slope is going to be 1 over 2. You cannot simplify that anymore, so we have to keep it like that. Third question, is the line solid or dotted? As you can tell, it is a dotted line. Question 4, is the shading above or below the line? It is clearly below the line. That means we're going to use a less than symbol. So we write it out as y is less than 1/2 x plus 1. And that is all that we have for today. If you have any questions on any of the concepts in this lesson, feel free to reach out to me.